Okay, you are going to be able to use TVM Solver for compound interest. You had this formula last week, which I taught to the mainstreamers yesterday. You had this formula here. That is fine for you guys finding FV and PV. But unless you do year 10 extension maths, you guys aren't going to be able to work out these numbers. You can't rearrange at the level of maths that we do. So what we do instead at the levels of general maths and essential maths, we use a calculator. So to find anything else in a compound interest question, you need an application called TVM Solver. You probably won't have a graphics calculator, so you're going to use one attached to DayMap. This is what I've shown you linked today. That's what's open on the screen right now. There's going to be two options because the legality of this emulator on the right-hand side, questionable. Okay, so it gets taken down every so often. So we're going to take advantage of it while it's up. But there's another option there just in case it gets taken down for your test. So the first notes that I need you to take down is how to open this TVM Solver app and then what the screen of TVM Solver means. So on your calculator, can you see a button that says Apps, A-P-P-S? Can you see the Apps button there somewhere? It's in the second column from the left, down 4. Apps there. Can you press that, please? Press the Apps button. You get a little menu that says Finance. Press Enter on that to open the Finance apps. And you can see the top application is TVM Solver. That's what I'm going to teach you as a head start for later years in your maths. So can you open that, please, and notice what comes up? So this is an app that deals with compound interest only. And the way it works is it asks you for these variables, and then it allows you to find any other variable when you've answered and entered the information. So you need to know what the variables mean. The first variable, n, is the total number of periods for the whole arrangement. Can you get that down, please? So n stands for the total number of periods in the arrangement. I is the interest rate as a percentage, so you don't need to convert it. So previously in the formulas that we're doing, if you did 5%, you needed to make it 0.05. When you're using TVM Solver, if it's 5%, you just type 5. No conversion required. What does PV stand for? PV is the principal. So that's a familiar term that we've handled previously. This is where we get to the jumping U for a head start. Why? Because I think you can handle it. And 2, I want to give you a head start while I'm your teacher, because not necessarily going to be your teacher next year. PMT. Someone at SACE decided that at year 11 we leave it at 0. But many of you are working, is that correct? Many of you could have a savings account. This may be the only useful maths that could apply to your everyday life. It's more useful if I show you what PMT stands for, rather than doing what year 11 someone decided at SACE says, oh, just leave PMT as 0. What does PMT stand for? PMT is what you regularly put in the bank, a regular payment. So let's say you are earning money from your job, you want to put away $50 every week, that's what that would be, okay? What does FV stand for? FV is the final or the future value of the arrangement, what your money grows to. So currently those top 5 things, there's no thinking required, but PY and CY, these need some thinking. PY stands for the payments per year. So you need to consider, if I was paying monthly, how many payments would I be making per year? How many months are there in a year? 12. Good. So you need to think about this one. If I'm paying every day, my PY would be 365. If I was paying once a year, PY would be 1. And CY stands for the compounding periods per year. Someone at SACE decided these stay the same, even up until year 12. But is there anyone in life deciding how often you pay into the bank? You can pay into the bank however often you like. So in real life, these two numbers can be different, but all the way up until year 12, someone more important than me decided they have to stay the same. Okay? Lastly, can you please keep PMT on end? You can see it's already highlighted on the calculator as end. So just get that little window down. What do the variables mean? There's a lot of scaffolding, there's a lot of setup for this. But if you're explained properly how TVM Solver works, it makes compound interest questions like lightning. You can answer them straight away. You don't need to do any maths with a calculator. You just chuck it into TVM Solver. So can you note down how to access TVM Solver? You press Apps, Finance, TVM Solver. And that little window shows you what all the variables mean. All right, the next notes is just about how do I go about using TVM Solver. All of this applies up until year 12. This is the expectation. How do you use TVM Solver? Firstly, you need to make sure it's compound interest. This doesn't work for simple interest. Simple interest, if the question says simple interest, you are using SI is equal to PRT. What I'm going to try to encourage you to do, as soon as the question says compound interest, you open the freaking calculator and you go TVM Solver, because it's much quicker than using that formula that I showed you last lesson. How do I use TVM Solver? Step 2, enter all the info from the question into the variables that you just noted about. The only trick to that is PV, PNT, and FV. They're positive or negative depending on where the money is going. So if the money is going from you into the bank, those numbers need to be negative because the money is exiting your wallet and is going into the bank to sit for a while. So the sign would be negative if the money goes to the bank. If the money comes out of the bank and goes to you, those numbers will be positive. So get that little section down. Also, please note, to make the numbers negative, you need to use the negative button. Can you see there's a little button next to enter right at the bottom? There's a little take sign in the brackets. In a graphics calculator, that's how you make something negative. Because if you press the take button to make the number negative, the calculator is going to freak out. It's not going to know what you're talking about. Anyone here do programming and it's going to say syntax error because it doesn't understand what you're trying to say. Okay? So to make things negative, you press that little bracket minus sign. So if money is going in the bank, it's negative. Money is coming out of the bank to you, it's positive. You can draw the little stick man if you want. And yeah, pretty much once you enter all of the variables that you want, you highlight the variable that you want to find out and you press alpha and enter, because over the enter button, can you see a word in green over the enter button? What is in green above the enter button? Solve. So what you do is you put in the info that you want and you ask the calculator, can you solve this problem for me? How do I do that? You press the alpha button because it's green and you press enter to get it to solve. This, I've put it in blue, but as long as you remember, if you're working out using TVM Solver, just write down what you put in and then put a star next to the thing that you solved for, okay? If all you do is write an answer and it's wrong, how many marks are you going to get? 0. Most TVM Solver questions are 2 or 3 marks. If all you write is the wrong answer, you'll get 0. If you write your working out, if you show me all of these things that you entered and the only thing you messed up was n, then you might get 2. Or if you messed up n and I, you might get 1 mark. Show me your working out by telling me what you typed into TVM Solver to get as many marks as possible. I'll talk about this formula after because I think it'll be better to just go into an example. We got Kanye here. Kanye invests 15 grand in an account, pays 4.25% per annum, compounding monthly. How much is his investment going to grow in 5 years? So how do I know that I'm going to use TVM Solver? It says compounding interest. Compounding interest, open TVM Solver. How do I open TVM Solver? Can you remind me? I just turned the calculator on. What do I press? Apps? TVM? Good. So what is the information in the question? Kanye invests 15 grand. So what's his principal? What's his principal? What's the starting amount? 15 grand. He's putting that 15 grand from his pocket into the bank. So PV, what sign would PV be? Negative, because it's coming from him into the bank. So I press the negative button next to enter, negative 15,000. So that TVM solver is telling me, whatever this is, someone's put 15 grand in the bank. What is the interest rate of this bank? So on I don't need to convert. I just press 4.25. It's compounding monthly. So PY and CY will both be, how many months are there in a year? 12. Notice how the calculator, I'm going to make PY 12 and press enter. Notice the calculator made them both 12. Even the calculator wants them to be the same. Just warning you, in real life, they don't have to be the same. Okay? What is it asking for? Have I put in PY and CY? Yes. Have I put in the PV? Have I put in the interest rate? Does it say that he's putting any regular payments in? He's just put 15 grand in, he's letting it sit. So the only last thing I need to work out is what is N. What is the total number of compounding periods if he did it monthly for 5 years? How many times would that compound in that total time? Would it just be 12 or would it be 60? Good. Please note on the calculator, you can actually do maths in the variable. At the top, I'm going to go 12 times by 5. See how I made it 60 up there? You can do a little working out. So what this TVM solver is telling me, Kanye put 15 grand in the bank because it's negative. What's the interest rate that he did? 4.25%. How often is the bank compounding? Monthly. How long is he doing it for? Well, monthly, 60 times. That's going to be 5 years worth. I can get all that info from just looking at TVM Solver. So question says, how much would his investment grow to 5 years? FV is what it grows to. So I press alpha and then enter. So that tells me, so I'll write down my working out. N is 60. I is 4.25. PV, negative 15 grand. PMT was nothing. FV, I'm going to put a star next to FV because that is what I solved for. PY and CY are both 12. How much would his investment grow to in 5 years? Kanye's investment would grow to $18,544.53 if he set that up. Okay? Right now, that's slower. Right now, that's slower than the formula. But when you get the hang, if you practice all of this, you'll get faster at it. Okay? How much interest would he have earned on the investment? Well, B. Interest on the investment, what did his money grow to? It grew to $18,544.53 minus. What did Kanye put in the first place? 15 grand. So he would have earned $3,544.53 in interest over those 5 years. Okay? Get that example down and we're going to do some more complex things, and then I'd like you, while we're doing those, any of you guys that are working, I'd like you to think of a situation that we could do as a class to pretend how much could you put into an account, I don't know, weekly, based on because it's more real if you do an actual thing rather than Kanye, okay? That won't be on the recording, so you can disclose all you want. And it doesn't have to be exact numbers, just give me a roundabouts. Eh? Get that example down and we'll do slightly more involved examples because these would be more applicable to what your situation is. I'm pretty sure none of you, unless you won the lotto, would have $15,000 sitting around that you could just chuck in a bank. But maybe you could put little bits into the bank at a time and let it build up. That's what an annuity is. So this example here, let's try an investment starting with nothing. An investment where you make regular payments into is called an annuity. The most basic annuity starts off with nothing. So what does that mean? PV is going to be nothing. PMT is going to be negative. Why? Because money's coming out of your wallet and it's going into the bank regularly. FV is going to be positive because at the end, see this FV of 18,544? Why is that positive? Because Kanye was given that money by the bank after 5 years. He started off with negative 15,000. Why? Because that 15 grand disappeared from his pocket and went in the bank. And it sat there for 5 years until it grew to $18,544. So let's do something similar here. Kanye decides to open a savings account. It was 4.5%. It was compounding monthly. He's putting $250 into the account each month. So now let's try it faster. Let's start off at default, 0.00001. What's the interest rate going to be in TVM Solver for this? 4.5, no conversion needed. Does it say that he's starting off with a sum? No, so PV is going to be 0. Does it say that he's regularly putting money in the account? How much? What sign would that be? Negative, because it's going from here, it's going into the bank. So PMT is going to be negative 250. It's compounding monthly, so what would PY and CY be? 12. Now I need to work N out. It's 5 years, happening 12 times a year. So 60, let's see how much his money grows to. Alpha solve on FV. A, what's the working out? N is going to be 60. I is going to be 4.5. PV is nothing. PMT, he's putting $250 in the bank each time. FV is what we solved for. So it grows to $16,786.39 to 2DP. PY and CY are both 12. Interest. That seems like a lot. $250 per month is not actually bad. For some of you working would actually be able to afford that. $250 a month. Yeah, $250 a week's maybe excessive, but $250 a month's not bad, especially for an adult. So interest is going to be what it grew to, $16,786.39 minus, we're not just going to take $15,000 because did he pay $250? How many times did he pay $250 into that account over the 5 years? There's a number there that tells me how many times. 60. He paid $250 60 times, so we need to take away those 60 payments of 250. So if I go on my calculator, second quit to go to the home screen, if I go 16,786.39 minus 250 lots of 60, the bank only paid him $1,786.39. So it's not as amazing as the previous one. Okay? I think we could do the investment starting with something with your example, because the only difference would be if you started with something. Let me ask you, if Kanye started with something, let's say Kanye started with 10 grand in this bank account, what would the only difference be? Which variable would change if he started with a certain amount in the bank? The principal. So if he started with 10 grand in there, it would be negative 10,000. Everything else remains the same. Solve for FV, it's going to be significantly larger. Why? Because he started with 10 grand and he's putting 250 on top. Okay? So I won't do that example because I'd rather do something applicable to you. I'll stop there.